Hey, listen to Wrestling Roundup on FreeFM, ArrowFM, and MP. As always, I'm Grady, and live on Skype we got Josh.
Yay.
Lots to talk about, lots to talk about. I'm just going to start with the Judgment Day, because I think that wraps up into a whole lot of stuff. We already had the betrayals of Rhea and the betrayal of Damien Priest, and those just deepened on Raw as the battle lines were severely drawn.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I mean, on Raw we had Rhea open up the show, her talking about how angry she is, taking a couple shots at Dominic. Then we had Dominic and Liv come out uh and have some back and forth. Dominic explain his reasoning behind it. And then we had Damian Priest do the Undertaker meme. And show up behind them. You see, they get a hold of Dom for a moment before he's able to escape, and with the help of the rest of the Judgment Day. And you see Liv and Rhea run out the front door, only to come back to after Damien beats the crap out of Carlito in his match. Um, so that was interesting. And then we got the most predictable match that we could have gotten: a mixed tag match between Dom and Liv versus Damien and Rhea for Berlin.
Yeah, I think we'd been saying for a while now that we were expecting that mixed tag match here, and then heading into the Cell at Bad Blood. Um, when you have two big betrayals, with the faction that is arguably the big storyline on Raw, it makes sense for that to be, the aftershocks of that to be your next
Yeah,
few big matches at your next few big pay-per-views.
absolutely. And it puts off, as you said, to Bad Blood, it puts off those big matches that we're expecting. We won't be see we'll see the Cell match between Liv and Rhea. We'll see uh, Priest finally get his hands on Finn Balor at Bad Blood. This is a stopgap, and it's
Great
also definitely
stopgap.
to great stopgap, and it gets more heat on Dom, more heat on Liv, and gets more sympathy on Rhea and Damien, which is exactly what you want.
Yeah. It's building it in the perfect way, and ultimately coming out of it, you're going to have a super hot Rhea Ripley, a super hot Damien Priest, and the opposite of I guess still super hot Dominic, Liv, and the rest of the Judgment Day as well. If anything, this has sort of reignited that fire. The Judgment Day were that top storyline, chugging along. We were waiting for the explosion. It's happened, and now they're pedal to the metal in terms of being featured, and Finn and JD holding titles again. It firing on all cylinders.
Mm-hmm.
And then, if we're talking about the other big faction fights, I don't know, betrayals to a point, the Bloodline got a little bit of comeuppance on SmackDown.
Yeah, I don't like it, as I said that I felt that the Bloodline needed to get their heat back.
Mm.
Roman Reigns running roughshod over them is not getting them their heat back. It only makes them look worse. Maybe on SmackDown this week they'll bloody, but at this point it's like, what's the point of Bloodline 2.0 if one man can take them all out? Of course, that's with the caveat of Jacob Fatu being injured. Quotation marks around that. Um,
Yeah, it's an interesting one, right? Because obviously we are meant to be, presumably, building between OG Bloodline and Bloodline 2.0 as a feud. But as you say, if it's just Roman Reigns with a steel chair and he can take out, three of four members, you don't need Jey Uso teaming back up with him. You don't need Jimmy Uso returning. You don't need anybody else, really. Roman can just handle it all on his own. And
yeah,
I was quite shocked to see that he sort of held the upper hand throughout this.
Yeah.
It was a
Yeah.
yeah,
And it also doesn't do much for the redemption arc of Roman Reigns if he runs roughshod over his creation.
yeah.
Because
He just
I think,
looks like a bad dude.
yeah, it's about because I think there's a lot of it's got to make up with the bloodline members that he hurt in order to get them on his side in order for that match. And, but yeah, I don't know. It's one of those things where we'll have to see where they're going from here. But I did not like that particular uh, step.
Yeah, it's not like tune out material. Still interested in seeing where they go. But I think it was a rare misstep in the Bloodline storyline. But you can prove a misstep wrong if you pull it off and you give it reasoning later down the line. So the jury's not out just yet.
Yeah. So maybe on SmackDown we'll see Jacob Fatu return, and that be the one thing that he wasn't there, so he couldn't afford be the enforcer and couldn't neutralize Roman, and then they just beat him down, absolutely pulverize him, and maybe even bloody him, like I said, and that's how they get their heat back. It's just you have him standing over a bloody, beaten, broken Roman.
It would be a very like powerful image to end SmackDown on for sure. Um, and then because it's tangential to the Bloodline, Cody Rhodes and his WWE Championship. Uh, I don't know if we were picking his next challenger, but at Berlin, it looks like he's getting Kevin Owens by his own choosing.
Eh, fine. Reward for helping him. Reward, and um, just giving Owens a moment in the sun, and it is what it is. It's obviously not going. The house not going to change hands. Kevin Owens is not the guy to beat Cody Rhodes, but it'll be a good match.
It was interesting, right? Because at least I'd been a really staunch supporter of a Cody Rhodes Randy Orton match, either at SummerSlam or coming out of SummerSlam, and then we end up getting Cody Rhodes versus Kevin Owens and Gunther versus Randy Orton, of all things, given the finish of the King of the Ring tournament. So yeah, if we jumped over to Raw, Gunther's challenger is being Randy Orton.
Yeah, much to the chagrin of Drew McIntyre, who was not happy on Raw this week about that. But he has his old problems to deal with, so he can't even say anything about it anymore. Um, yeah, I mean, I like that it's basically a stopgap. It's Randy Orton is going to be what AJ Styles was for Cody. A great match to get kick off a title run. And it also is that it ties up the loose strings from that uh, uh, obviously failed pin.
Yeah, just sort of, I guess, takes a mess up, makes some chicken salad out of it, and I'm sure Orton Gunther. We already saw it at that King of the Rings final. Run it back, sure it'll be a good match. But
Yeah,
much like Kevin Owens ain't taking the title off Cody, Randy Orton ain't taking the title off Gunther.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's one of those things. It's like it's just something to keep him busy, to keep him away from Cody, and we get that taken care of. Gunther gets to go home and have a great match in front of his quotation marks home town crowd, and uh, hey, uh, it's going to be one of those just matches. We're going to be like, this could be a year match of the year contender.
It should be good to see. Um, what we got? We got time. Talking about number one contenderships, SmackDown loved it this week as there was many number one contenderships handed out, and one of those is the United States Championship. LA Knight trying to celebrate his win ends up getting Santos Escobar in his face, who comes out on top of a match with Andrade, thanks to Carmelo Hayes, but still comes out on the top of, and we're going to get Santos Escobar versus LA Knight for the US title.
Yeah. Should be interesting. Should be an all right match. Um, yeah, just the it. I don't know really know what to say. It's like LA Knight celebrates. He gets he's gotten his moment in the sun that he's been waiting a year for. Santo Escobar wants his moment in the sun, but he's not going to get it because LA Knight just won the title. Um, but it should be a fine match. It's not going to be anything near match of the night, but it should be fine.
No, I think for me, if you think about all the sort of combinations that SmackDown midcard is looking pretty good right now, with LA Knight, Escobar, Andrade, Hayes. You can put on pretty good matches with combinations all around there with those guys. So I don't think we have anything to worry about in the short term in terms of SmackDown's midcard scene. All the heels have been lining up, and now with that change of champion, they're all ready for their turn. And with the tag team championships on SmackDown, the WWE Tag Team Championships, we had two number one contender tournament matches. The Street Profits coming out on top of A Town Down Under, and DIY coming out on top of Pretty Deadly.
They remembered Pretty Deadly as a tag team, not just a comedy skit backstage.
We remembered for about 10 minutes.
Yeah. Um, I think this is all for the Street Profits, which are losing their leader, by the way.
Hmm. Going
I think
back
we
to
do need to
Street
talk about
Profits.
the fact that um, Bobby Lashley is leaving the company.
It does
Um,
seem pretty well locked in. It's at least good to see that the Street Profits aren't sort of getting pulled down because of it. But it does sort of halt something that we were quite excited for with regards to that group. When they first came about, we're like, yes, this is the heel turn we need. And then it floundered, and then they were faces again. And
yeah,
ultimately,
yeah,
we're back to the same old Street Profits.
they put them together, but didn't have a plan, and unfortunately, that is one of the few misses that Triple H has had in his reign as head of creative. Um, Nothing you can do about it. It's been done. We'll have to rebuild the Street Profits into a legit tag team, um, unless we want to go the New Day route and split them up. But it is what it is. It's. I think they'll beat DIY next week, assuming the match happens on SmackDown this week, and I think they'll go on to face the Bloodline at Berlin, depending on what combination they decide to send out there.
I was gonna say, if they send out Tama Tonga and Tonga Loa, maybe you got a shot. But if the combination they send out has Jacob Fatu, Street Profits just turn around now, just head for the hills. And you obviously tried to hint us towards New Day there. We'll squeeze it in before the song. We'll stack this side of everything. Um, New Day down to two members for a little while now. Xavier Woods, Kofi Kingston. They've sort of been trading injuries back and forth. And Kofi making friends and Xavier not really wanting new friends when it comes to Odyssey Jones.
Yeah. Um, Odyssey Jones had an okay squash match. What it was, what it needed to be. Um, yeah, you could definitely tell just from his looks and his mannerisms. Xavier Woods is not happy. Um, and honestly, everything that Karrion Kross said is 100% correct. Um, and we're going to get a six-man tag next week featuring all three members of the Final Testament and the two members of New Day and Odyssey Jones. And I
What do we
think
call them? Is
that
it the
is
New Day or is
where
it the Newer Day?
and I think
Newest.
that's where things explode. I think Woods absolutely snaps next week. And many people will cry.
Be included. Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see what we get next week. It's very clear that Carrie and Cross and the Final Testament are getting to Xavier Woods. As you say, we are at that point now where the rubber band has to snap and it's going to hit somebody in the face. I
Just
don't
want to
know.
point out that everything Karrion Kross has not done a thing in WWE since he's returned, except everything that he said he was going to do, he's actually accomplished, as he didn't do it himself. Like getting Drew McIntyre to embrace his darkness, changing Bray Wyatt. He said he was going to bring down the downfall of the Bloodline, but that was technically never even followed up on. But that did happen. And he said that he was going to break the New Day. And that's going to happen next week.
And here we are. Well, I better get into our entrance theme. Our entrance theme this week is the song for Bron Breakker, our current Intercontinental Champion, who we will talk about on the other side of the song. Enjoyed Wrestling Roundup on FreeFM, ArrowFM, and MPR. I'm Grady, he's Josh. Main event of Raw, Bron Breakker, Sami Zayn, 2 out of 3 falls match. Bron coming out on top and keeping the title around his waist.
It was a great match. Bron and Sami, they went to war in the limited amount of time they had on Raw, because they had like less than 20 minutes to do a 2 out of 3 falls match. But they went at it. Sami got the first fall, so you didn't get your 2-0 finish.
It's true.
And then Braun scored the second fall, and nearly broke Sami in half by throwing him in a large dart into the timekeeper area. Before eventually spearing him in midair to score the deciding fall. I think you're not going to be able to keep him heel much longer. Fans are getting behind him. They are excited when he does his moves, but you also had something else that he did before the match started that I think is also going to contribute to him not necessarily being a heel, and that was he did the whole coming from the back segment with the camera, and he asked the crowd if there were any dogs in Austin, which responded with the crowd barking. I don't see how you can do that. Have somebody who just like get pops out of everything they do and keep them heel.
Yeah, the signs for him definitely seem to be pointing towards a face turn. As you say, as he's being sort of embraced by everybody. And it's always funny to me when people sort of transition between heel and face without really changing a whole lot. It's just a little tweak here and there, and then the perception of them by the crowd. And, you know, people want to see Bron come out and rip people apart in the exact same way we wanted to see Goldberg do it back in the day. And Bron's done sight better. And so, yeah, it's a good little progression for Bron. And it's something that we've seen from his time on NXT that he can definitely pull off as well. I have not an ounce in my body that's scared he's going to flounder or not be able to pull off the face character.
No,
Bron's the whole
I
package.
agree. I agree with that entirely. I think he'll be one of the top sellers, and I think come Royal Rumble time, he'll be one of the people we'll be talking about. This guy has like 20% chance to win the Rumble or something like that. Like there'll always be guys that we say, this guy has this amount of chance to win. This guy has this much, so on and so forth. I think he'll be one of the guys we'll be considering. I also think that maybe they're building something bigger with the Nutter storyline that eventually is going to be a clash between Bron Breakker and another Bron.
All I can think of is LeBron James. I'm mind blanking here.
The Braun that ended up being in the match R-Truth thought was getting a Intercontinental title match against Bron Breakker.
Bronson. There we go.
Yeah, Bronson
I'm
Reed.
a little slow.
Yes. I think we might be preparing. We're definitely elevating Bronson Reed. I think we're setting a collision course eventually for Big Bronson Reed versus Bron Breakker for the Intercontinental Championship. And that will be one heck of a match.
We all know Big E would be happy.
Yes. Also, I love the fact that they chose somebody that nobody could possibly hate in order to get a cheer from in being destroyed this week. In being that our national treasure, which was actually uttered on Raw by Michael Cole, R-Truth was murdered in cold blood in the middle of the ring by Bronson Reed with about 5 tsunamis.
Only 5?
Actually, I think it was technically 4, but I think they counted the one they did, The Miz, as part of it, as a 5th, to win the match. But yeah, because I think if it had happened to Miz, I think we would have seen the same scenario last week with the one more time and cheering. There was no cheering for this one because it was R-Truth that was being destroyed, and everybody loves R-Truth. But he's getting over. In 2 weeks, he's done more in those 2 weeks than he's done in 6 months. And he's definitely getting people to notice him. And that's why I think he's a logical, eventual opponent for Braun Breaker. Especially if you do turn Braun face.
It makes a lot of sense, right? 2 big, unstoppable forces. Put them head to head, and it's always going to be a banger.
Yep. And they've had good matches in the past, too. So, but yeah, I look forward to that. I think I could easily see Braun dropping the title to Bronson, and after Bronson being elevated by working with Seth and all this stuff that he's doing right now, and then Braun going off to do things in the main event.
You're going to have to see how it all shakes out, but I want to put a little bit of spotlight in our remaining few minutes over onto the Black and Gold brand, NXT. We got ourselves some brand new NXT Tag Team Champions. Chase U with the gold, but not Duke Hudson.
Nope. It was a good match. It was a good match. It was short. They didn't have a lot of time for it, unfortunately. But it was a good match. I think Ridge Holland gets a well-earned, deserved moment that to come back from the whole situation with Big E, and then where he was going to retire and basically was just laughed at by the crowd. He joins Chase U, much to somewhat chagrin of Drew Hudson, brings the tag titles home to Chase U, and they now have gold.
I'm throwing up my U in the air. You can't tell because it's radio, but fully behind Chase U. You know, a gimmick that I thought didn't have legs to go as long as it's going, has seen many ups and downs. But hey, it's working out, and Andre Chase has some gold with him now. But I also don't want to run away from NXT too fast, because I'm sure you want to talk about your boy Joe Hendry. He had a segment, Pete Dunne-Wesley, but then also ended with a bit of a segment with our all-ego champion.
Yeah, they opened up the show with Ethan Page basically crowing that he retained when nobody thought he was going to, because everybody thought he was going to lose to Oro. And Joe Hendry comes out and said, "You don't even have to say my name anymore. I will appear when I want to." And basically laid out a plan that he wants the NXT Championship. Unfortunately for him, that led to the man of the hour from last week super kicking him in the face. And then they wove that into a segment with Wesley explaining why he did what he did. Just that he's tired of carrying and being the caretaker for the Rascals, and that he was just pissed off that they left him alone, and that nobody thought he would be anything, but he made himself as a North American champion and all that. And then you have Pete Dunne and Joe Hendry come out and get their revenge, and now next week there'll be a number 1 contender match between Joe Hendry, Pete Dunne, who's kind of in a feud with Trick Williams, so it kind of eliminates him, and Wesley to decide who becomes the number 1 contender. We all know that's going to be Joe Hendry, because Wesley obviously also strangely challenged the guy from MSK that got kicked out, that I can't think of his name right now, to a match as well. So it'll obviously be Joe Hendry versus Ethan Page at No Mercy. So that should be fun. But yeah, that's just going to be a fun thing to see. I don't think he'll win the title, but it should be fun.
And we'll get to see that fun unfold throughout the weeks on NXT, but that is all we have for this week. And it's been great talking to you.
Baby.
You can visit our Facebook page, facebook.com/wrestling R&D Upper, our Twitter page, twitter.com/wrestling R&D Upper, our YouTube page, youtube.com/wrestling RND Up. And we will see you next week.